leads, but Carr is strong. He catches back up to him after having to fend off the 23. He's got a great run. He's going to look underneath. The 71 does not defend. They're going to go wheel to wheel into 3 and 4. Who is going to be able to get to the line first here? Down to the inside. He's going to get pinched. They're going to come together. They're going to come together. Is Tim Downey Jr. going to get this? He runs into him. Who is going to get to the finish first? It's Massey.
That is Deterk trying to go defensive. Wanmi says, all right, that's fine. I'm going to go to the outside. You see him taking the widest line into that corner possible, just keeping momentum up around the outside, not taking no for an answer, and by sheer force of will alone, that is Wanmi Costa up into the final podium position.
Off of turn 4, Valenteus looking for the launch. He gets it right up to the wall. He's got a good lot of speed. Is this enough speed, though? As they come to the line and getting ready to cross, he goes around the outside, but it's not enough. And it is going to be Togo Hisada taking the win. Vincent has got the bit between his teeth right now. He said enough of this back and forth and allowing him through. I want the spot back, and he's going to get to the inside. Down into Sayat. Can he complete the pass? Keeping up the momentum. Caven Norris is going to remain wheel-to-wheel down into Vert, but it's not really a too wide turn. They're going to make it one this time, and Norris gets it back around the outside. So this is the 48 car here off of turn 4. Watch this. Really has to catch it. Just trying. I bet he didn't lift that whole way. I think his foot was on the throttle the whole time.
Probably just a little bit too far back, trying to make that run up on Evan. Evan goes to cover the grass.
Espes blocked to the grass, side by side, 2 by 2 for the race win. Now nearly 3 wide. Hyde's taking a peek.
We've got a double here. They're going 2 wide and 2 wide. Oh, falling in. Oh no, we got contact. Cam Evan goes around. Oh, that's got to be rough. As
it's
we
not
have
over yet.
The local favorite going in, and Espes going for the lead, but Williams trying to get in there too. Where are we going to set up here? Coming into the final corner.
Williams trying to get the run on the left side, on the right side. Espes on the left side. A drag race. Williams takes the victory at Mount Panorama Circuit. Brandon Hawk in 3rd, Espes in 2nd.
The influx of new talent has quickly established itself as a serious threat for championships. Of the top 5 in points, 2 are rookies, including the points leader. Today's race at the Red Bull Ring will be significant on how things look heading into the finale in 2 weeks. Let's see if the newcomers can keep it up as we get ready to watch round 4 of the Absolute Beginners League Formula Neagle, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Red Bull Ring is usually considered a shorter circuit in higher-powered cars, but in the Skippies, they'll feel a bit oversized. Let's head to our track guide to learn more about it. Welcome to the Red Bull Ring. Located near Spielberg, Austria, this track began life in a much more fast and sweeping format. Having gone through multiple different owners, it eventually was snatched up by Red Bull and has its 3 different layouts you see today. While they range roughly between 1 to 2.5 miles in length, the thing they hold in common are fast straights, hard braking zones, and very few corners. In fact, the longest and most common layout, the Grand Prix course, has only 9 of them. Spots like Remus and Gosser are the most popular corners for overtakes, but both involve dramatic elevation changes. Each have their perils. Remus tends to see drivers make contact when the blind cutback often goes wrong, whereas Gosser tempts you into braking far too late, and the downhill nature shoots cars miserably into the gravel. A few swift bends still scatter the track, with turns like Lauda, Rent, or A1 really testing a driver's accuracy at high speeds. However, most of them don't send you off into the grass. rather, there is a lot of paved runoff, but they often include some nasty curves most cars will want to avoid hitting, as they've been known to damage suspension and under trays. A variety of types of racing compete here, with everything from lower Formula open wheelers to motorcycles, touring cars, and all the way up to Formula One holding events regularly. Set among the gorgeously picturesque Alps and including great racing on a challenging and history-rich circuit, it's easy to see why fans and drivers are both eager every time they come for a race. Well, we've watched these cars race here before in this series, but for our viewers that didn't tune in last season, DJ, what can we expect?
Well, Joe, it is going to be like we see a lot of times here in Formula Neagle. It will be a draft train, at least through the first about sector and a half on this circuit. The run from Niki Lauda all the way up to Remus. Watch for drivers to tuck up behind one another, try to make the pass down into that right-hander, as well as going down into Schlossgold. But from there on out, it is going to be a little bit of follow the leader. That infield section around the jumping bull there in the middle through Rauch and Worth, that is a part where you've just got to be patient and line everything up. And then the fast sweeping natures of Rindt and A1, both of those corners, very, very tricky to actually get a pass done through there. Once again, it's going to all be about setup. And as we often see here in the Absolute Beginners League, it's all going to be about patience and timing.
Indeed. And, well, the timing on the championship is getting pretty late as we take a look at the drivers' standings. And Hammer has a significant gap, especially in this series where there are no drop weeks and it's a very short season. Only one left after today. So if Hammer finds himself pulling at least 25 points ahead, that means that he cannot be caught. This is critical for Lucchetta to try and rein him back in. We also have a teams championship. DJ, how's that look?
Well, we do indeed, and you can see there Evolve Motorsports ahead by about 14 points over Video Brewers Racing Team. So a pretty big gap there for Evolve, but a close battle there behind with Two Stupid Dogs only 4 points back from Video Brewers, and a three-way tie for third between Two Stupid Dogs, RT Racing, and Team Kombacht.
For today's race, again, if you are just tuning in for the first time this season, it's different from what you may be used to. It's a 50-minute race now, and they have 2 pit stops because of that, both of them for fuel. We're not expecting anybody to try and come in for tires, though, in that time. It's an open setup series, so drivers can try to tweak these little skippies to their desire, but there's not a whole lot you can do to them, so it'll be more down to the driver and, of course, that draft track strategy. They have 1 spare car as well, so if they get damaged, and with the 2 pit stop strategy, they should be able to have time to try and duck in if they find themselves with a car that is limping around. And we'll keep a close eye on that as we head on over to the qualifying session now. So drivers are just going to be getting out onto the circuit. And you mentioned a little bit difficult to pass in those last few corners on this track. That makes me wonder, is the track position going to be important here, or will the slipstreams really be enough that if you qualify, let's say, outside of the top 10, you don't have to fret so much?
Well, Joe, I'd say about the top 10 is around the cutoff point that you're going to be looking for out here. If you qualify outside of the top 10, it's going to be a little bit tricky to continue to hold on to those front-running cars. We see it often the case here in the Absolute Beginners League that there tends to be a 4, 5, or 6 car train that will develop at the front. I think if you're quick and maybe you just don't get the best qualifying time down, you can work your way up and catch on to the back of that group. Qualifying outside the top 10, it may be a little difficult to be able to pull yourself into that. And so I still think you're going to want to be as far up towards the field as you can.
You can see it is an open qualifying, even though it's only 10 minutes. So they're going to have to hustle around here because, like I said, this is a bit of an oversized track for these cars. It may be one of the shortest on F1's calendar, but we're looking at close to 1:50 just to do a single lap. And that'll be probably just about enough to put in, I'd say, about 3 or 4 for most drivers. So hope you find a clean one. And more than that, with that slipstream always being important, I hope you can find a partner to work with.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. That is one of the biggest keys to it. We're already seeing some of those partnerships play out here. We're right on board with Titus DeYoung, for example. That's Jeff Randall. Right ahead of him, you can see up the road, that's David Burns and Wojciech Hodacek. They're kind of playing into that draft train, so a lot of that is going to be going on. A lot of these drivers obviously have been racing with each other for a number of years. They all know how to play this game in qualifying, how to get a good lap once and then back off and help somebody else to get a good lap the next time out.
We'll be watching out for guys like Luketa, for Hammer, Batichinsky. Unfortunately, David Burns a little farther down than he'd probably like at this stage. In fact, he really has to outscore some people even to have a hope to take it down to the wire for the championship, or else he is out of contention this round. As you see them head through Remus, a site where we often see wrecks both in the real world and here in the sim. And plunging down the hill, that is Burns leading the likes of Hodacek. But we head over to Ryan Walker, who's come back in to try and ply his trade over here. This is a guy that we often see and these lesser powered cars, and is no slouch, but we're most familiar with him for being someone who sometimes is up with us in the booth.
Exactly. Good to see Ryan back out on track. And I've always been a big fan, personally, of his helmet there. A little tribute to David Coulthard. Ryan, of course, being a Scotsman and riding in the GSRC colors, just instead of the St. Andrew's Cross, he's just made it red. And so I always like that on the top of his crown.
That is a nice nod as we watch with Hodacek now. Hodacek is coming around up towards these final two corners, still following behind Burns, seeing if he can maybe use that extra pace that the champion has. And as he comes out of A1, so far it's looked clean amongst them. It's another little talking point that the drivers do need to be aware of, is it is a modern F1 track. There's a lot of paved runoff, and there's plenty of places where your qualifying lap can be deleted.
Yeah, indeed, and they're going to have to be very wary of that, specifically going around this first corner here, as well as down through Rent and A1. So we're getting these first set of times. Burns at the top of the charts to the surprise of no one. Luketa behind him, Matuszynski directly behind them. So the usual suspects working their way to the top.
Indeed, and a little bit of a swap around as they head up the hill. We jump back behind them to Plaisir, who might be feeling a little bit of the slipstream. I'm not sure if he's too far back from them or not right now, but he can at least see them up the road onto the highest part of the track here. And a little bit of weaving back and forth still from David Burns. Not too shocked. There's such long straights and so few corners. I kind of wonder if it takes a bit for the tires to get in here.
Yeah, it does, especially with relatively cool track temperatures like we're experiencing right now. It's about 82 degrees Fahrenheit out on track, so definitely a little bit chilly, and it'll take a second for these tires to heat up. As you see there, a little bit of that passing going back and forth, as we've talked about.
Platania there, Francesco, one of our quicker drivers in the lead-up and the warm-up, so we'll see if he can keep up that pace. Unfortunately, his first lap got deleted. He let Tellini go by him, and this is Durr, who we are on board with just behind. Another driver that unfortunately has not set a time yet. And this is what baffles me, though, is they always want the slipstream, but it does feel like sometimes they hold one another up. I guess it depends on who you're with.
Well, if you look a little bit at what, for example, Burns and Luketa do oftentimes, is they will bring that car along with them on the straightaway and then let the trailing car pass them. The lead car will back off a little bit and let them pull ahead, and so that way you get the best of both worlds. You get that overspeed down the straights, and then coming through the twisty bits, that lead car that's going for the best time isn't forced to compromise their line based off the car in front of you. More times coming in, Steve Durr up to 7th, Tellini up into 4th. That's a great time there for Giuseppe, as we're just waiting for about half the field to put in their first times now.
I'm checking through them, and a significant amount do have laps deleted, but there's others who haven't even set a single time yet, like they haven't been on out on track until now. And looks like Philip Hammer just took the pole away from David Burns. So we watch from Walker He is one of those that still needs a time on the board as his first lap got deleted, but he's also doing it without any help. He's just all on his lonesome coming out of Vert up towards the Rent right-hander and then into A1 over the crest with 2 pit stops too. They hopefully have practiced that pit entry into here, as you do have to dive off pretty quick. They don't have the F1 rules where you have to stay within the white line on the left-hand side before you try and enter. So we could see a few people get caught out as they try and pit in late. A 150.6 for Walker will put him into 13th, so into the mid-pack, and he's got enough time for about 2 more laps.
Yeah, I think that's about right, and something that may be a little disconcerting to the rest of the field. I was just looking back at Philip Hammer. I think, Joe, there goes David Burns to the top of the charts, able to deny my point there, but I'm pretty sure Hammer's running those times all by his lonesome. Lucetta now going up to the top right there. So we've got some good competition starting to shape up in those about top 5 slots.
And Lucetta has timed this perfectly, I imagine, because he's got half a second over anybody else out on the field. That is impressive stuff as we watch Philip Hammer come through the last 2 turns onto the front stretch. He's getting a nice tow from Ricky Scotty. Let's see if he can beat this 49.038. Yes, he can, at 48.665. That'll be good enough for second place. Still 2/10 off of Lucetta.
He's still 2/10 off, but if you notice as we rode on board there, he had a very scruffy exit out of A1, ran a little bit wide there. I think that probably accounted for about 0.05 of a second off of that time. So much closer in practice, or in theory, than in practice, as here comes Benetez, excuse me, I can't talk today. Benetez, there we go. That's how you use words. As he comes to the line, able to improve his time by about half a second there, so he'll be happy.
Getting himself that little bit higher, down to less than a minute to go. So if drivers are crossing the line, they'll get time for 1 more lap here. You see them plunging down into Schlossgold. Who's going to be the next to cross? I'm checking. Ryan Walker goes quicker, 49.8, a nice improvement. That'll be a top 10 for him. Podacek and Burns are up next, and Burns looks like he is pulling the tow. What is this going to do for him? Podacek currently sitting in 8th position, 49.2. That's an improvement for him. And for Burns, it looks like he did not go quicker that time.
No, he did not. He was about a second off the pace, but this is what I was talking about. Whoa, is somebody going off there on the exit of Rent? What Burns will more than likely do is be able to now take the draft going up this first long straightaway, pull out ahead of Podacek, and they will play that little bit of tag team, waiting for some more times to come across here. Yep, indeed, there you can see it. Podacek dropping behind right there. That gives Burns the benefit of the draft on that first straightaway. He'll pull a little extra speed, and now Burns will lead the rest of this lap.
Ooh, and Hammer just took the pole away from Lucetta by about 0.2 of a second. Lucetta does have time to complete his lap, but we now have the checkered flag, so times are being locked in. Zilke is going to be next in the 34. He hasn't set a single time, and he does get one down over the 58.5. Unfortunately, it's going to be the last time on the board because of that. We're watching with Lucetta as Benitez is going to be crossing as well. Looks like he doesn't have that one counted. Nick Carty, same situation as Harris as well. Lucetta now coming into the infield portion of the circuit, dipping downhill into Vert. He's got a nice tow. Is this going to be enough to make up 0.2 of a second? He'll also be behind Burns as well as Podacek. So you have to wonder if the 125 will also give another marker for Lucetta to try and close down in on.
May indeed. We'll have to see if anybody's going to put anything in. Good there. Ooh, that's going to check up Lucetta a little bit. That car slipping and sliding ahead of him. I don't think this is going to be a good time for Manuel Lucetta.
Burns improved but did not go up in position. Lucetta does not go faster. So Hammer has the pole position, and I'm not seeing anybody else out able to overtake him unless we get a real shocker out there, and we're lacking 4 cars who have set a single time so far. I think that might become 3 because Vladimir Stelskal looks like he is going to put one on the board in that number 18 car if he's nice and clean here. Let's watch. And yes, he does. Well done to the 18 car. That'll put him into 28th. At least he's got one, even though it only takes him up about 2 spots. But that sets our grid here today, and our qualifying is now finished. Well then, that was fascinating there at the end for our drivers. And it was Philip Hammer who managed to take the pole position, with Lucetta starting in second next to him. David Burns might be close to being out of the championship, but he's saving everything here and building up to see if he can strike back. He'll start next to Pleasure there in 4th. Then it is Tolini in the 5th position. Matushinsky in P6, as Amadio will be in 7th, and Potacek starts from 8th. 5th row has Seifert on the inside and Durr on the outside.
Starting off in 11, it's going to be J.R. Hoops, followed by J.T. Kopanen, with Ryan Walker in 13th and Ricky Scotti in 14th. Jeff Randall will be lining up to the inside of row 8, followed by Benjamin Harris, with Nick Carty and Antonio Benitez behind them in 18th. Titus de Jong will line up 19th, and Francesco Platina will round out your top 20.
Krumholtz will be 21st, followed by Geros in P22. Then you've got Gordon Vandenbergen in the 23rd spot. Nicholas Anderson starts from 24th. Italo Anzioso starts P25. You've got Klaas Loden in 26, followed by Dana Bose on the inside of the next row. Steskal gets a time in at the last time of asking with 28. Zilke, the last time driver to set a time in 29th. Stipek, Nylander, Banks, and Paolo Anzioso, we have 2 of those here today, will be 30th to 33rd. So we get ready to go racing here soon, and as we mentioned, the temperatures pretty decently cool up in the Austrian mountains, with not too much wind as well, at 11 miles per hour, 17 kilometers per hour for our metric folks. Just about have everybody hooked up. Last time we were here, it was 1 pit stop, going to be 2 today. I wonder if that's going to cause some games out there, DJ.
Well, it very well could, especially considering just how much fuel you can save around here. So we may see a few things starting to play out in that way. But ready to get going here, just for the last couple of cars to get on the grid.
About 30 seconds left, waiting on Lucetta as well as Tolini. Looks like Troy Banks may not have logged in there yet as well. And now it is just Lucetta. So he is going to give them a long wait. Hopefully he doesn't start from pit lane, because that would be a horrible way to kick things off after putting himself on the front row. No, he is going to start out front. So that means the lights will start to come up as the engines begin to rev here in these little skippies. And the green flag is out. As they crawl away from the line, it looks pretty decent from everybody up at the front. In fact, pretty much the top 8 will all file into single file as they come up towards the first corner. But look at Matushinsky diving it into the first turn, very deep. Doesn't quite get him the position. Watching behind to see if we have any issues, and everybody is nice and tidy.
Everybody nice and tidy, avoiding some of the kerfuffles that we often see there going into that first corner. But yeah, Matushinsky being very, very aggressive in that opening stage of the start there, keeping to the inside right now of the 27 of Tolini. I think that's going to be Matushinsky's corner, especially as Tolini runs a little bit wide, but it's not fully clear. Meanwhile, the top 4 just continue to run nose astern.
I wonder if this is actually a bad move from George, because as you mentioned, they're losing touch here. And unless he's got pace to try and run them down, or he's still feeling at least a little bit of the effects of the slipstream, this might cost them a shot at the victory. And I know it's very early in the race for that, as we watch on board with Amadio here. The 19 car coming up to the outside of Tolini, down into Rauk here. And as they plunge downhill, looks like they are well out of reach.
Yeah, well out of reach of this leading group, being led by Hammer, and this extends back to Remco Pleisier. Just that top four separated only by about a second, and then about a second and a half or so back to George Matuszynski. So Matuszynski's going to really have to work here to try to rein these guys in. He also may want to be working a little bit with the 27 of Tellini, or even Amadio, try to play a little bit of leapfrog.
Woo, Potacek had a big moment there. We didn't quite see it, and he had just another one. His car slipped up. That caused Seifert to have to check up. You can see them scattering as Thorsten is going to be the one losing spots, unfortunately. Coming back up to Lauda, JR Hoops is going to take advantage. He gets past one. He's looking for two. And once they hit the braking up and over the hill, is he too hot into the corner? No, he manages to make it. But Potacek with a great exit fights back as we ride on board with Walker, who is also trying to overtake Durr.
Exactly, and Walker's now going to get a little bit of help there from Durr to get that pole towing along, and it looks like Potacek about able to pull in front there of JR Hoops, and indeed he is. Walker's going to send it down the inside. He's not going to get that move done, though, but there's going to still be multi-wide here coming off of Remus.
Yeah, that was Randall, Koppinen, and Scotty that were 3 wide back there. Harris also watching. Look at them fan out as they come down into the braking of Schlossgold. And it looks like amongst them, I think, whoa, deep on the brakes for Randall as they got a spin in front of them. Seifert, for another time, has to catch it. This time, though, he's the one that starts it off. It was Potacek before that he had to check up for, and he continues to bleed positions.
Yeah, a lot of checking up there, a lot of cars sideways going out of Schlossgold, costing a lot of time in positions. It's really left Potacek out into a city unto himself. We're going to go back and check out that replay as they go into the corner. Noah's Ark. There you can see the contact with the 76. Seifert just barely holding on to that car.
Great catch. It's one thing I do love about these skippies ever since they've been put on newer tire models a few seasons ago. They are a lot of fun to slide around, even if it isn't the fastest way, because you can catch them as we ride on board with Lucchetta in second place. Battle for the lead here. Hammer just in front of him, and this 4-car breakaway does look pretty set here on lap 3. Burns third in line, Pleisier in fourth. They've still got about 1.6 seconds back to the second group, which has been whittled down to Tellini, Amadio, and Matuszynski.
Exactly, and then there were 3, and Remco Pleisier there looking like Amadio is going to have a little bit of a look on his outside. Pleisier very smart, falls back into line there, doesn't let too much of that get going. Oh, spin behind, that is Matuszynski.
Unfortunately, lost control of it, and he's trying to find an opening to get turned around, but everybody's so packed up that he's having to sit and wait very patiently. I think, yeah, he could maybe get a little spin turn going on in the grass. There isn't a lot of power in these things, but sometimes you can do that. And he falls all the way to 29th. If I'm him, I'm pitting this time around.
It may not be a terrible idea. Now let's see. I just carried too much speed into that corner, and Joe, with as light and as sort of nimble as these skippies are, you've got to be careful about the changes in elevation, specifically through Remus. There is that dip on the inside of the apex of the corner, and if you get a little too far into that and try to put on the power while your rear tires are going through that dip, it can really cause the suspension to upset, and I think that's what happened to George there.
I'll be honest, that's one of my favorite cameras there from Dougie on board Tellini there from inside the roll hoop, looking with that fisheye lens at the helmet, just bouncing around as they come onto the main stretch. Tellini trying to chase Amadio for what is now 5th position as we jump a little bit ahead of them. And we're watching from Pleisier now into Lauda corner once again. Oh, Titus de Jong off at the side of the track. Not sure if he had some help or what happened here, and he actually took a tow. Ooh, he T-boned into the side of Benjamin Harris. So yeah, that was a decent wreck. As we continue to watch our leaders now up into the Remus corner, steeply uphill out of here, needing every ounce of oomph you can get out of these engines.
Yeah, really and truly, relatively underpowered engines for these skippies. We watch here that leading pack, nobody really looking like they want to make too much of a move here. This is a lot of what we see in these skippy races for new viewers. A lot of times you'll just see this sort of follow the leader train here until we get to maybe around the pit stop cycle, and then certainly in the last couple of laps of the race.
I love this paint scheme for Pleasure, with both with the car and the helmet, just because this reminds me of, for some reason, Italy in the 40s and 50s. Just feels very vintage to me. But right now, he's not thinking about aesthetics. He is thinking about working out his strategy and seeing how long he wants to tail these guys, if he wants to try and make any moves. Is he just going to sit back and save fuel?
Well, Joe, with especially as long of straights that are around here, I wouldn't be surprised if we see both Pleasure and, frankly, Lucchetta and Burns save fuel specifically on this first stint. We may see a little bit more aggression once they come back in, the car settles in a little bit more. As we get further in the day, it's only 9 o'clock in the morning virtual standard time, and that sun's going to continue to rise. Track temperatures are going to heat up a little bit more and get into that really, really perfect zone for tires around, say, about 88 to 92 degrees. That's right where you want it to be. So we now jump back to Ryan Walker. Continues to work his way around in a good top 10 here today.
Indeed, he is the fourth in line of a group of 5. This is essentially our third grouping on the track right now, being led by JR Hoops in 7th, Podacek back in 8th, Steve Durr 9th, Walker 10th, and Scotty, as Walker goes a little bit wide there, coming through Remus, and Scotty is going to snatch up that position, so he is now in 10th.
Indeed he is, and that's some of the give and take that you've got to do here a little bit around the Red Bull Ring, is you've just got to be patient. For Walker, that is not saying that he is not going to be able to move his way back up forward. It's just going, okay, I'm going to spend the rest of this lap just saving a little bit of fuel. But Wojciech Podacek there looking a little bit aggressive on JR Hoops coming down out of Schlossgold. Now, we normally don't see passes in open wheel machinery going down into Verth, but Joe, you and I have covered a couple of GT races there where we certainly have.
Absolutely. Well, as we come through the infield portion and once again back down into Vert, it looks like we might have a move from Podacek. Oh, he was poking his nose a little bit, then he decided against it. He's going to stay with JR Hoops. Nobody has taken a scheduled stop yet. I see Titus de Jong has been in and out of the pits. I think maybe he had to take his spare car for that one. Hopping on board with Steve Durr. The middle of this little group, David Burns taking the fastest lap in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. Burns just very, very cautiously stalking. And you can see again how close Wojciech Podacek is getting up there to JR Hoops in that 7th place position. Really, really closing down on that McLaren livery number 10. He's starting to pull in here a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we see exactly that. Wojciech Podacek pulls his car to the outside of what will be Remus going for the move, and Hoops falls back into line.
Breaking into the corner, not going back in line. It looks like Scotty wants to try and overtake a spot for Durr, but no, he doesn't get the exit he needs. And Podacek up at the front of them has seen some distance put between these two and the back 3. Could they maybe split this up further?
Oh, they could. This is that. Whoa, as that was a very late lunge for Scotty, and that is contact between him and Durr.
Oh boy, already we're getting some drivers getting a little bit too close here this early in the race with nearly 40 minutes left to go. We're going to take another look at it. Looks like he just lost a little bit of control. He had it in control by mid-corner, and unfortunately maybe just there was not enough space left around the outside by the time they got there.
Yeah, indeed, that can happen sometimes. These skippies like to carry that momentum really around the outside, jumping up here to Lucchetta in P2. He's about 0.3 of a second off of your leader, Philip Hammer. Pretty much equidistant there between himself and David Burns. Lucchetta, though, let's see how he takes Lauda. he may have a little bit of overspeed. Now it looks like advantage is shifting back to David Burns as they make it right out of the corner. But that was Lucetta with the fastest lap of the race.
Indeed. Hammer pushing the air for everybody for most of the race. Now, is this what he wants to do? Will it cost him when we get to the pit stops? As he's being chased by Lucetta through the corner, on board with David Burns now. Being chased by Pleasure. Up and over the crest they go. The gap behind them is all the way up to 4.1 seconds. It's Tellini and Amadio who've been in that second group, and they seem like they've been working together somewhat, but they are certainly not fast enough to catch them. There you see them right now.
Yeah, it just doesn't quite look like they have the speed outright to hold on to the back of them. Looking at the times being set down by Hammer in that leading pack, I'm seeing in the mid-48s. And from Tellini and Amadio, I'm seeing in the low 49s. So it's enough to distance themselves away from the likes of Podacek and Scotty, Hoops, and Walker, but just not quite enough to close down on that leading pack. But you jump on board with JR Hoops right now.
Virginia's driver coming down through Vert, just behind the likes of Scotty. Based on his paint scheme, I'm going to guess he's in West Virginia, but you never know, as they come up to Rent. Ooh, and did we have a switch around? No, we did not. Hammer is in. Hammer pits.
Very, very interesting. All right, pulling the trigger on the first pit stop. This is a little bit earlier than I would have expected. And for Philip Hammer, I'm going to be a little bit concerned. I would lose some of my draft partners, frankly, coming around here. But he's clearly got something else on his mind. We'll have to see where he slots out.
He was leading the way, though. I wonder if he thinks he could be faster, and he's hoping to break the tow just by running laps alone. We have seen it before. It's a rare occurrence, but they're not really swapping around a whole lot in that front group. So I guess at this point, unless they do start swapping around, he's probably not going to lose a whole lot.
No, I can't imagine he would, as I'm looking for where he's going to be coming out. It looks like he comes out in 22nd position, sort of right in the middle of a battle going on in the back. I don't think that's going to be good for your former leader.
Yeah, that is the real problem there, is getting in the traffic, and it's a lot of the cars that are farther down in the fields. Yes, he'll get a few toes here and there, but he's going to have to fight his way past as he does that. Right now he's got Benitez just in front of him, and he's already pulling a nice slipstream. Does he try and attack for that 21st spot? Yes, he does. This is going to be his first one. Picks it off nice and easy down to the apex. That's P21.
It is indeed, but this area of the track, this infield section, this is going to be Hammer's bane if there will be one. But he's not taking no for an answer. Already diving out of the inside of Kloss-Loden, trying to get his way forward. He can get really slowed down by some of these cars. We're going to have to keep an eye on the lap times as Burns does respond. David Burns also dives down pit lane.
Oof, I'm guessing he doesn't have a spotter helping him out, because if I was, I'd be telling him, don't pit now. Your rival is stuck in traffic, and you're going to get stuck in it too. So, looks like Walker is going to have a monkey see, monkey do moment as well. He is in. Hammer, and Hammer just had to avoid a wreck. In fact, he got caught up in a little bit. Maybe the tiniest of touches on the front of that car. Hopefully it didn't give him damage, but certainly checked him up slightly. So what will this do for Burns as we take a look at that replay?
We ride on board with Philip Hammer here. There you can see it, and you can see the smoke. Oh, great job to hold on to that from Philip Hammer. Looking at the front of the car, I would expect there to be front wing damage. I don't see any necessarily from Hammer, but Burns able to get out just ahead of your former leader.
I think that was enough to slow down Hammer, that he lost the time for Burns to try and jump him, but the momentum is in favor of Hammer, and he is going to cut through. Or did Burns intentionally let him by?
Well, David Third Degree Burns is one of the headiest drivers we see out on this circuit week in and week out. Would not be surprised if he let Hammer by, just take up behind in the tow, and try to extend his next fuel stop by just that little bit more, Joe.
As we watch our leaders, we saw a flash of a maroon car with Burns and Hammer. And that was Matushinsky, who did not take his pit stop yet. He's back there because of his spin early in the race. So that has got to be really gutting for him to see he's a full pit stop behind. Lucchetta stays out while Pleasure comes in. So one by one, each successive lap, we are seeing those top four pit in.
We are indeed. I think drivers just don't want to be left caught napping. And now for Lucchetta, he has the problem of being last man standing. He doesn't have a buddy right now, doesn't have anybody to pull the draft on him, and that'll definitely cost him some time on the long straightaways. But for Lucchetta, he's going to have to push really hard, specifically through that infield section, and make sure he doesn't lose any time.
Onto the main straight. Pleasure's rolling now, just as these two are coming across the line themselves. Remco past the cones. He can start rolling. I'm not sure if, and no, he's not going to come out ahead of him. Just doesn't have the speed. There they go, but he is right there, and he's trying to tuck in behind before he gets overtaken by some of these other cars that haven't stopped, including Platania, but he's not going to be able to do it.
No, he's not, but I would not be surprised as David Burns now makes a move for what will be the lead of the race. That's Hammer letting him by. Little bit of an aggressive move there from Platania, trying to see if he can get something down to the inside. What that is going to do in turn, though, is it's really going to slow up his exit speed, and just as I expected, there goes Remco Pleisier moving to the outside here, going for that draft pass. Oh, no. He's going to have to do a little bit of a crossover there, as Platania does not want to give that spot up. And he has some damage, Joe, on that right rear wing. Platania does.
Ooh, that's just going to slow him down in a straight line. So if they start fighting, it will be costly. And Remco will really have to play catch up to hold on to the front two. Lucchetta, wow, Lucchetta keeps going. He's not stopping yet. So he's going to go as long as he can. Maybe feels that this clear air is actually better for him as we come back to hoops. Another driver that has not stopped yet. He runs in sixth. This is Podacek and Scotty in front of him.
Yes, it is. That is that little battle in the back. I am seeing Jeff Randall diving down pit lane right now. So Scotty, Podacek getting a good run there out of Lauda. He's going to put the pedal to the floor and go for that move that we did not see Pleisier able to make on that last lap.
Around the outside, and he's got it. I think Scotty just kind of lifted a little bit. Let him have that one. So back into order they go, up around Remus. They have also dropped Steve Durr, and Durr just spun behind them. The 66 goes around, pulls a full 360, and is back rolling just as a group of cars streams by. That's Geros, Koppinen, and Vandenbergen.
Let's go back and check out this replay as we ride on board with Steve Durr, working his way up the hill. All right, so he gets here under braking. You see this car squirming just a little bit, gets onto the power, carries a little bit too much speed into the corner. You can see how that rear end wanted to break away, Joe, even as he started the turn-in process.
He had just enough time to get that thing around before those drivers came in there, which probably helped him a lot, because at least he could tag along with them in the slipstream. But 3 positions down just from that one incident, as Giuseppe is going to duck into pit lane.
Yes, he is. We were able to see that tricky pit entrance, gets that car down to speed. We're hearing out a call that Vandenbergen may be diving down as well. I'm seeing Tellini, Podacek, Scotty, Hoops, that whole 4-car battle. They're all diving down the lane as well. This is only leaving out Lucchetta and Amadio from the top is Geros, Vandenbergen, Koppinen, Durr, Stipek, Carty, Harris, everybody coming down. It's a pit party.
It is indeed. Some getting in quicker than others. Carty almost got hit by Harris under braking into the pit lane. Thankfully found enough space because these cars are pretty small, and they were able to go too wide. Philip Hammer with the fastest lap of the race now, and he gets promoted back to third with all those pit stops going down in the lane. Looks like Tellini going to be the first one amongst them back out and rolling, and he will emerge in 6th place, but we're waiting on Amadio and Lucchetta to come in. Not surprised that this is where we see the majority of them pit. If we hit 25 minutes and someone hasn't pitted, well, then they could one-stop this thing, which we didn't really anticipate being a possibility.
That may be the only strategy here I'm seeing from Lucchetta, because Lucchetta's not putting in good times as of right now. Running a 48.5 on his last lap out. Meanwhile, Philip Hammer running the fastest lap of the race. And Hammer's been able to get that gap to about 32 seconds or so. Now, that made it sound like a lot, but it looks like cone-to-cone drivers are running anywhere between about 44 to 49 seconds. So that's not exactly going to work out well for Manuel Lucchetta. And he comes down pit lane.
Indeed, he does. So taking the long strategy, did this work out for him? Amadio joins him. Hammer will now be trying to race his way to the front stretch, towing along David Burns as Lucchetta looks for his stall. Pulling all the way along. He's qualified second, so he's going to be almost to the very end of the pit lane. And there you can see Lucchetta coming into A1 just now. Or excuse me, Hammer into A1. Lucchetta is just finishing up his pit stop, but it looks long. It looks very long. It's up to 15, 16 seconds. Is he going to get jumped here? Yes, easily.
Very, very easily. He may be in a little bit of a fight with Remco Pleiser, but I think Pleiser even is going to be able to get around Lucchetta quite easily. Oh, no, they're going to be pretty much side by side as they exit the pit. So not all lost here for Manuel, for the Italian driver, as he's got a chance to play a little bit of leapfrog. David Burns playing a little bit of leapfrog of his own, jumping up into the first place position there.
Now, I don't want to be Chicken Little yet, because thinking on it, Lucchetta went longer than all of his rivals here. So, of course, they're going to have shorter stops since they still had a little bit of fuel left in the tank. So, I wonder if that's going to pay back for him. He's going to have a shorter second stop. And if he can keep up here, it will pay huge dividends because, like you said, he's got Remco. So, actually, this might work out beautifully for the 91.
It may indeed, and this is where I've got to give kudos to the Absolute Beginners League. They implemented the two-stop strategy here about a season or so ago, and it has really made these races even more exciting because we've got to sit here and do all these math equations and the combinations, the permutations of this strategy. So very, very interesting things to play out here with still about 25 minutes left to go.
12-year-old me is not happy that you called math exciting, but regardless, we get close to the halfway point now. And a couple more laps, we could see drivers take a short second stop and duck in early. It all depends on how they want to try and make it work. Krumholtz here on board with him, vying for 16th and 15th. That is Stipek and Carty just in front of him, down into Vert. They try to get the car down to that inside curve, and then it swings back to the right as they fly towards the last two right-handers.
Indeed, and I do really love seeing the skippies out on this track, Joe, because it really shows you just the layout of it. So many times we come here on some of the higher speed open wheel cars and you don't get a sense of just that kind of beautiful flow to those couple of corners because there's so much downforce pushing the cars into the ground that they're able to just kind of fly around it so quickly. And these skippies, you really get a sense of the way the track is laid out. Checking back on these pair of dueling couplets for the lead right now. Hammer ahead of Burns, Lucchetta there behind, right now ahead of Pleiser.
Yeah, Hammer took that spot just into Remus recently, so they're swapping around. I suspect they are indeed trying to work together a little bit in this middle stint to use those little leapfrog methods to gain some time. Steve Durr, who is trying to leapfrog past Koppinen, but it backfires. He's slow off the corner. Here comes Geros to his outside.
Yeah, Christopher going to be trying to take a little bit of a look there, but here goes Durr, able to get on by right now. So that is going to be Steve Durr into 12th, Geros down in 13th, but that battle is anywhere far but over.
Absolutely. As they come out of the corner, we jump a little bit behind them as well, as Carty had to avoid getting into the gearbox of Peter Stipek. They get ready to head through Rauch and Vert themselves And don't forget behind them, they've also still got Krumholtz. We jump back now to our top two, this time by the lap time of 47.9. Another fastest lap for Hammer. And Lucetta behind him, a 48.2, his personal best, 0.3 off of him. He's starting to lose a little touch.
He is losing just a little bit as this leading pair start to pull away a little bit. There goes David Burns poking his nose to the outside. Hammer being smart, backing up a little bit, just saying, nope, we're going to hold it out here.
Just going to try and work together, lap after lap, try and get whatever inches they can over those chasing behind. Knowing that it's going to be critical when we get to those last pit stops. Look at them just kind of running in pairs there as we head back to Scotty and JR Hoops in front of him, vying for that 8th spot. I feel like Ricky Scotty needs to put a Wonder Bread scheme on his car.
Yeah, I do too. It's just close enough of a name that he needs to have some fun with that there. But we do watch him maybe take a little bit of a move on. Not able to get it going there on JR Hoops rather, quite yet, but Scotty applying a lot of pressure.
Tom Cruise wasn't there to help him that time, but he's still with it. Didn't lose too much with that attempt, sliding them into these corners as these cars don't have much downforce to help them out. And down into the next one, a little wide at the apex for Hoops that time. That slows them up, and Scotty gets another chance.
Does indeed, and here he comes. Unfortunately, though, for Scotty, this is not the area on the track you really want to get a pass done. You want to wait as long as possible if he can. Just keep that car behind through the fast and flowing sections of Rint and A1. This 2 right-handers, looks like Ricky's been able to do it pretty well. That is half a defensive move, I think half a glom take it from JR Hoops as he gets over to the right.
No, he's not lifting until about here. There he goes. So Scotty is by once again. Hammer and Burns have just swapped positions up at the front. Don't really need any sort of replay on that. It's another little cooperative bit of racing between them. Lucetta and Pleasure. Last time looks like Pleasure set his personal best of 48.3 amongst the pair of them. But Hammer with a 48.7 and a 48 flat for Burns. They're back to 2 seconds back. We continue to watch here as Scotty being chased by Hoops up the hill. We're going to get another little fight down into Rauch once again.
I think Hoops is thinking about it. He's thinking about it, but it looks like there that Scotty's just going to hold that outside line. Hoops backs off, breaks a little bit early, declining to go for that attack. I think he just wants to wait a little bit and see if he can get a better run. Jumping back further in the field, this is Christopher Geros. This is back in 13th. Remember, this is the battle we checked in on a little bit earlier between himself, JT Kopanen, and Steve Durr.
Are they actually catching Randall as well? Let me double check the lap times. Randall 49.6, 49.9. Durr 49.2, 49.3. Yeah, they are gaining. So it's about to be a 4-car fight pretty soon. And I can actually visibly see that that gap is getting smaller as they go through each corner.
Yeah, they're certainly catching back up. Well, we are closing in on the stage where we've got a couple of laps probably until pit stops start firing off again. So who knows the way this could shape out. There are still lots of variables left to go in this race.
Up and into Remus once more between Hammer and Burns. Still at about 2.1 seconds past Lucetta, excuse me. This has been a bit of a pressure cooker between these two. Who can keep the pace up? Who can keep pushing to try and stay ahead? Speaking of the pit stops, Krumholtz going to be the first to bite on his second stop. And, oh, no, I take that back. Stipik beat him to the line on that one.
Yes, he did. So Krumholtz there and Stipik both coming down pit lane. Everybody else opting to stay out. Now, the advantage here for them coming down like this, as we said, is that they will be able to take a little bit less fuel in the tank and not nearly have to put as much in to be able to get to the end. But we'll have to see how the rest of this strategy will play out for them, where it'll put them in line, what it'll do to everybody else.
Up the hill and over the crest, heading towards that pit entry. Any of these drivers going to try and duck in, especially now that they're coming upon the traffic? No. Hammer and Burns stay out. Lucetta and Pleasure stay out. I almost wonder if it would be worth it. No, not going to be any sort of problems with that lap traffic. Stezcall is going to get out of the way.
Yeah, and the next car up the road looks like Ryan Walker, who had an issue there at some point. I'm not sure entirely what happened. I mean, he was running a lot higher. But Ryan is the next car that they will have to come up against, and he's 12 seconds up the road. So we don't have to worry about too much as we jump back again into that nice little fight. This continues to be a good one here. Geros just continuing to try to hassle JT Copen.
It looks to me Walker either had some damage or something as to why he is that far down, because I just checked and he had a long pit stop, potentially taking repairs or something there. So something went wrong. Maybe a penalty that we missed could be involved as well, as these four work their way towards Remus as well. Steve Durr ahead of Randall, who wants his spot back. Koppinen going to stay in line. Randall going to be able to take that inside line away from them as they climb up the hill, and Durr is much better on the throttle off the turn and denies him from the outside.
Does indeed, but look at the way that they are starting to bunch up there. Geros, Copen, and all of them coming up behind here. That's going to be too wide. That's the 107 of Randall. Ooh, almost thought about a move going down onto Steve Durr there, but able to hold that out. They will come back to single file as they get out of Schlossgold. That almost got hairy.
They still got 16 minutes left to go. They got to keep these things whole until then. Oh, I was about to say we had to swap around for the lead, but no, Hammer is going to pit this time.
All right, so that's the first of the leaders pulling the trigger on the pit stops, and that's not surprising. Remember that it was Hammer, the first of the leaders, to pull the trigger the first time out. I'm also seeing behind him that Loris Amadio coming down as well. Amadio.
What can he do with this stop? Can he manage to get himself at least one more position as we continue to ride on board with this great fight in the mid-pack? Geros at the back of it, giving us a great view of the three in front. Coming up towards Lauda. Anybody going to set themselves up with a run up towards Remus here?
They're certainly thinking about it. Jeff Randall looking a little bit susceptible, but I think that backed up JT Kopenen ever so slightly. And so this may be now Christopher Geros making the move.
He's just a little bit faster, but Koppenen's also got a nice toe from Randall. If anything, remember, Durr's slightly out of place here. He had that spin earlier on. I think he's starting to break the slipstream just a little bit, and that's ahead of him is actually Philip Hammer. Wow, that is a car that he really wants to try and close the gap and slipstream behind. He's got about a second up. Now is the time to push, Steve.
Yes, it is. And on these longer straights around the Red Bull Ring, I expect that draft effectiveness will be around a second. So if Steve's able to pull in another 2/10 here through this twisty infield section, and this is really where it all comes down to driver skill, Joe, if he can pull up there and get in within about a second, by the time they get to Niki Lauda, he'll be able to get a little bit of a pull and be able to keep himself behind the leader, and that can only do good things for him as we've got Burns and Pleisure diving down pit lane.
And for reference, Hammer's pit stop was 13.7 seconds in his stall. So let's see if the others around him can do that little bit better now that they are stopping in. Burns wanting to make up some time. Pleisure wanting to try and catch up. They'd lost about 2.5 seconds to those top two. So we wait for them to return out. Potacek carries on. Lucetta, Tellini all keep going. Ricky Scotti going to stay out, and it looks like Burns is rolling, and he's way ahead of Pleasure as well. And Hammer's coming out with Burns, going to try and meet him. He maximizes his pit exit, but he doesn't quite have the speed. He will get the toe, though, and he at least holds on to the shot at the win.
He does indeed, and so that is good news for him. Looking to see what happened to Pleasure. Pleasure just fell down the order there.
Yeah, he's way behind from what Burns was, at least before the pit stop. And, well, remember we said that Durr wanted to try and hold on to that slipstream. Well, instead he's been fighting back and forth with Randall, and they have fallen farther behind those two leaders. So no chance to try and ride their coattails, at least for the time being. Comes back onto the racing line, leaves the door open, almost contact between them into the turn as we come back to on board there with Burns for a second. Thankfully, no touch officially I'm seeing between Randall and Durr.
No, I'm not seeing any there either as well, so everybody's going to be relatively happy about that. Don't want to see a lot of damage. Yes, you do get a spare car in these skippies, but even riding around just a little bit with the spare car, these things are so fragile, Joe. As Tellini dives down pit lane there out of P2. Just a little bit of contact can really mess up these cars.
Protechek stays out. Looks like Hoop's going to pit, and Scotty stays out. So more drivers being released. So Hammer and Burns won't have to catch up to cars that have yet to take their second stop. If you're wondering when Lucchetta will come in, we're expecting he's going to go long for the second time. And if that's the case, we should see roughly 6 or 7 seconds, or 6 or 7 minutes rather, left on the clock when he finally comes in for fuel.
Indeed, as we're seeing some more of this cycling coming back out. That battle still just absolutely raging back there, jumping on board with JT Koppanen. Randall and Durr side by side ahead of him. That's Randall to the inside, able to make it work. JT Koppanen says, "I'd like a piece of that, please," and tries to make this a 3-car battle. I don't think quite has the momentum, but he's now going to tuck up behind Steve Durr and see if that can pull him along a little bit.
He certainly is, and he is our highest rated Finn right now. Well, highest positioned Finn, I should say, as they come around the corner. But Koppanen is still in it. He's going to be able to keep Pleasure behind him, poking his nose back and forth, weaves down to the inside, tries to send it deep. That is not an early entry corner, and that won't work.
No, it will not. And remember, this is Pleasure way out of position. We saw him fighting up for the podium positions earlier in the race. And Joe, I'm still going back. I can't figure out for the life of me what happened. His pit stop was in line with everything. His time cone to cone looked in line. I think he just got a little bit slowed down coming in and coming out.
It could have been back up to Burns. And, looks like Protechek and Scotty are now pitting in. This will move Hammer and Burns back up to P2 and P3.
Yeah, Randall and Koppanen also coming in as well. So this final finishing order starting to play itself out here. And as you said, Joe, waiting about for that 7-minute mark or so for Manuel Lucchetta to come down pit lane. I would expect him next lap or potentially on this lap, just depending on how that fuel is going to work out for him.
Yeah, it's a long lap around here, about 1:48 for our fastest drivers. Up into Remus once again, as you see Burns and Durr trying to keep away from Stezgal, who is a lapped car, not a part of this, doesn't want to get involved. A little bit of a poke there. You know, the other thing we haven't talked about yet, really, is that now that the pit stops are done, the passes have got to be done on track, but it looks like Burns not really all that interested in making it quite yet. I wonder if he's thinking closer to the end to avoid giving Philip more opportunities to fight back.
Well, that is very much his MO as Lucetta is diving down pit lane. All right, so here comes the battle. This is it, the battle cone to cone. The 91 comes down. We'll keep an eye on Hammer and Burns, but this could be the decider.
It was 16 seconds stationary for him last time. Hammer Burns, 13 seconds this time. What is Lucetta going to have as he sips that fuel into the tank of that Skippy? Hits his marks. No, he doesn't. He overshoots it. Oh, no, that might have given away the race. It would have been a shorter stop by our estimations. Where is Hammer? He's coming along the front stretch right now. And Lucetta is done. It's 10 seconds. It's still pretty quick, but they are by, and I don't think Manuel has got the toe behind them. No, he's way too far back.
Oh, absolute heartbreak there for the Italian Manuel Lucetta, just getting denied at the pit stop like that. It's so easy to do in these open wheel cars. You just slightly misjudge your braking point coming into pit lane. Your brakes are a little bit cooler than you anticipate. Your tires aren't fully going like you're on full speed. You miss it by that much, and that can cost you the chance at the podium, a chance at the win, as Lucetta now a full 2 seconds behind our leaders.
And that would have been at least a second, if not more, that he lost having to back up over that split moment. So he would have been with them, I think, if it wasn't for that mistake. At this point, he's got to hope that those two start fighting quite a bit. They are coming up to lap traffic as well. Ryan Walker in front of them. I wonder if he will be able to stay out of their way, or could he potentially check them up enough that Lucetta gets a second breath on his fight for the victory. The good news for Manuel is that Pleasure had an even worse stop, and the 2-car is way back and forth. In fact, about 4 seconds behind Manuel.
Yeah, still not sure what happened with him on that, but it's really separated out this battle for the lead. It's now become a 2-horse race between Hammer and Burns. They are coming up to that as Ryan Walker that you see pulling off to the side right there down the pit straight, letting the 2 leaders on by, not wanting to get involved in that battle.
We're going to pull a page from Bill's on here. You're David Burns, a DJ, and you're coming down to these last 7 minutes. Do you want to be in this second spot coming into the last lap, or do you want to be ahead?
Oh, I want to be in exactly where Burns is. This is page 1 out of the David Burns playbook, as I would say it. He loves to be in this chasing position. What he's able to do here in these closing couple of laps is severalfold. Number 1, he's going to be the one to have to execute the pass, and he's going to be the one to get the draft to be able to go on by. I would expect him to make that move coming out of Remus, coming out of that corner that we just saw them through and going down into Schlossgold right here. That's where to watch for the move. And the second thing he's able to do here is just kind of poke his nose this way and that. See where Hammer wants to defend. See what his lines are going to be like. See what his tendencies are. And that will allow him to better anticipate what Hammer's defense will be on that final lap. It's really and truly Burns in the catbird seat here.
Got a bit of a battle for 8th as Hoops and Scotty have been side by side ever since they went out of Remus, and they now come down into Schlossgold looking for it around the outside, and Scotty's going to take it back and get back into single file with that 8th position.
Well, there you can see it. Scotty does know how to get that pass done, and a good move around the outside of Schlossgold to be able to pull that off, but Hoops not letting him go quite yet. I think that battle is going to keep raging here in the final 5 minutes, much as it has done over the course of this entire race.
We just have all kinds of potential TV shows we could pitch here. We got Hammer and Burns, and we got Scotty and Hoops as Burns rides behind for P1 and getting ever closer to that traffic. This time it is Nick Anderson. He's going to pull off to the right-hand side. And yeah, he's going to easily let him through. I do like, what happened to Potacek here? He is very slow.
I'm looking to see. It doesn't necessarily look like there's a lot of damage to the car necessarily, Joe. But did he just have a wide run somewhere?
No, it looks to me like he just came to a halt. I wonder if he had some technical issues he had to try and take care of, because he started rolling once again as we watch to see when the move is going to be made by David Burns. Will that Hornet sting? He's got 4.5 minutes left. When are they going to be crossing that line as well? How tight is this going to be in terms of laps left? Running at about 148. So they're going to be looking at, I believe, 340 something that they will have left if they have 2 laps left. So yeah, this is going to be extremely tight.
Yeah, it is indeed, and rest assured that these leaders are keeping an eye on that, making sure they know what that gap is going to be when they cross over the line at the 148. I imagine this is going to be 2 to go.
Ooh, it's very, very tight, because I think the math comes out to 336 left. Is the magic number that they needed if they're running very fast laps. Of course, if they check each other up, that's a different story. Now, the other thing we haven't looked at is what happened with Lucchetta in his laps, because he's still about 2.1 behind. 48.4, 48 flat for Burns. Lucchetta 48.3, 48 flat. He's holding on. He's not losing touch with them. He's pushing as hard as he can, I imagine, to try and see if he can gain on them. So he's really got to hope that they do start fighting early so that he can maybe get involved.
Yeah, that's certainly what he is going to be hoping for, and it's a case of woulda, coulda, shoulda there for Manuel Lucchetta. Just so very close onto the back. Clearly has the pace, and if he was just able to get a second there through, would have been able to hold on and keep this fight going. Here we ride on board with David Burns, giving himself a little bit of a gap here to Philip Hammer. And that's only through that second sector that he lost time. I think that may be a little deliberate, Joe. I think he's setting himself up. I think that he anticipates us coming to the white flag here.
Interesting, as he's setting up the run now. Again, the magic number is about 148, 147. On whether or not we get 1 more or 2 more laps to go here. Around through Rent and now around through A1. The timing line is early on the straight. It is 150 something. And as they cross the line, wow, it is still a question mark.
Barney was waving the white flag there, Joe, so I believe this is 1 to go.
Burns now coming out of Lauda. This is one of the more popular spots, but if he takes it here, he could open the door to Hammer down into the next braking zone. As he looks to the inside, he's not close enough, as he's still going to wait patiently. They hit the braking for Remus now. Into the right-hander, looking for the exit. Hammer still holds the upper hand with the track position, but now the slipstream starts to kick in even more as they pick up speed. 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, up and over the crest. He's not gaining, though. Burns is going to show his nose. He's going to have to send it in very deep to try and make the pass. And as he tries to go as deep as it will, it's not there. Did he give himself too much credit? Can Burns not manage to slipstream by?
I don't think he can. He's only got a couple of corners to go, and as we've said, this infield section not great for passing, and the Skippies has a little bit of look to the inside going through Rauch, but that doesn't look like it's going to play out. Has to stay in line going down through Verth.
Out of the left-hander. He'll get one more good shot here, but passing into Rent. I don't know about that. Side by side in the last corners will be sketchy. Lap traffic staying out of the way. Hammer defends to the inside. Burns around the long way. And he's going to have to take to the runoff because there's a little bit of nudge between them. Comes back to the racetrack, but he's behind as Hammer exits the final corner. Hammer is going to take the win here at Austria.
A wonderful defense there from Philip Hammer. Manuel Lucchetta able to cross the line in third. We jump back to this battle between Hoops and Scotty. I said this may not go away. It hasn't gone away yet.
They're coming up to those last couple corners themselves, but not seeing defense from Scotty like we did from Hammer. Hoops is just behind him, both of them sliding through the turn. Now through A1. No, he's got a little too much steering lock in it. He catches it, but that'll catch him out. Unfortunately, Scotty gets 7th. Hoops gets 8th.
Indeed, it looks like Jeff Randall and Matachinsky gonna be duking it out there, going to the line. There's contact between the two. That throws Matachinsky off a little bit. I believe that is lap traffic. No, that's Benjamin Harris able to pip him at the line.
Matachinsky only 13th today after all is said and done, and he qualified in 6th. It was a recovery, but he could have had more. And looks like most of the rest of the lead lap, which is about 21 cars, are all a little spread out. So that's going to take us to a break here. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. While leads, but Carr is strong. He catches back up to him after having to fend off the 23. He's got a great run. He's going to look underneath. The 71 does not defend. They're going to go wheel to wheel into 3 and 4. Who is going to be able to get to the line first here? Down to the inside. He's going to get pinched. They're going to come together. They're going to come together. Is Tim Downey Jr. going to get this? He runs into him. Who is going to get to the finish first? It's Massey.
That is Deterk trying to go defensive. Wanmi says, all right, that's fine. I'm going to go to the outside. You see him taking the widest line into that corner possible, just keeping momentum up around the outside, not taking no for an answer, and by sheer force of will alone, that is Wanmi Costa up into the final podium position.
Off of turn 4, Valenteus looking for the launch. He gets it right up to the wall. He's got a good lot of speed. Is this enough speed, though? As they come to the line and getting ready to cross, he goes around the outside, but it's not enough. And it is going to be Togo Hisada taking the win. Vincent has got the bit between his teeth right now. He said enough of this back and forth and allowing him through. I want the spot back, and he's going to get to the inside. Down into Sayat. Can he complete the pass? Keeping up the momentum. Caven Norris is going to remain wheel-to-wheel down into Vert, but it's not really a too wide turn. They're going to make it one this time, and Norris gets it back around the outside. So this is the 48 car here off of turn 4. Watch this. Really has to catch it. Just trying to, I bet he didn't lift that whole way. I think his foot was on the throttle the whole time.
Probably just a little bit too far back, trying to make that run up on Evan. Evan goes to cover the grass.
Espes blocked to the grass, side by side, 2 by 2 for the race win. Now nearly 3 wide. Hyde's taking a peek.
We've got a double here. They're going 2 wide and 2 wide. Oh, falling in. Oh no, we got contact. Cam Evan goes around. Oh, that's got to be rough. As
it's
we
not
have
over yet.
The local favor going in, and Espes going for the lead, but Williams trying to get in there too. Where are we going to set up here? Coming into the final corner.
Williams trying to get the run on the left side, on the right side. Espes on the left side. A drag race. Williams takes the victory at Mount Panorama Circuit. Brandon Hawk in 3rd, Espes in 2nd.
Welcome back to the Red Bull Ring. We saw a stunner here in the Absolute Beginners League. We're used to that at this point, but it still is fun to watch as Philip Hammer had to fight off David Burns on the last lap, and it wound up being only 1 second between them. Lucetta was in 3rd behind them. His bad pit stop may have cost him a chance at trying to take that victory, and it was Pleasure who finished in P4. You've got Amadio who finishes in 5th as Tolini is in 6th. Ricky Scotty from 14th to 7th. A round of applause for the 25 car. He beat JR Hoops there with that last lap battle. He finished in 8th place. Kopanen was 9th, and Durr rounds out your top 10.
Coming home in 11th was Jeff Randall, followed by Benjamin Harris, who was able to pip George Matachinsky at the line. Matachinsky came home in 13th. Vocek Podacek fell down the order there, unfortunately, down into 14th, and Nick Cardy came home behind him in 15th. Peter Stipik was 16th, followed by Paulo Anzinio in 17th. 18th was Christopher Geros, followed by Dana Bowles, and Gordon Vandenbergen rounds out your top 20.
Nicolas Lodin finished 21st, last one on the lead lap, and Zioso was 22nd as Ryan Walker sadly was a lap down 23rd. Benitez finishes 24th before Titus de Jong, who was 25th, and then Nick Anderson last one lap down in 26th. Steskal had to settle for 27th, 2 laps down himself. And then you get to your DNFs, which include Krumholz, Platania, Zilke, Seifert, Nylander, and Banks did not start here today. That takes us to talking to David Burns, who looked like he was trying to set things up for the finish there. And David, I have to confess, we thought that you were trying to set him up for a slipstream pass among those first 2 straights, but then it didn't seem like the slipstream was powerful enough. Is that what you were aiming for?
Well, no, I think what would have helped if I had actually shifted at the right point. No, I misshifted coming out of turn 1. And then I misshifted again going down the hill towards the corner where Hamilton and Albon came together. So I was like, the only chance I had was the last corner. And to make it even worse, when I've just looked at the replay, it was netcode. We gave each other room. I could have made that stick because I would have just gotten off track and I could have held it. So I'm quite frustrated.
Yeah, that I understand that frustration. And this was fascinating to watch in terms of the pit stops as well. You were one of those that elected to come a little bit early. Were you at all worried about Lucchetta as he went pretty long compared to you two?
I'm always worried about Manuel. He's so darn fast. Yes, a little bit, but I knew because Philip was he's incredibly fast. Every race this season, he's just been phenomenal. So I thought, right, I need to Eero him, which is basically follow his pit stops, because his pit stops are really on key. So that was my strategy. I thought if I'm behind him, I'm just going to stay in his draft. I'm going to follow his pit stops. And it worked, if only for the netcode.
Well, you still get a second place. Unfortunately, I think this does mean that you're out of the hunt in the championship officially. So when we head off to Brands Hatch, a much tighter, smaller track, what's your goal for that one?
Beat Philip. I do like Brands Hatch. It's a really good track. So I think you'll see more racing. This one was a lot more strategy with fuel saving as well. But Brands Hatch probably won't be as much fuel saving. I think there'll be a lot of tighter battles. But yeah, it'll be stay at the front and keep your nose clean, because this season it's not been the cleanest.
No, but I will say this was a very exciting and I'd say clean comparatively race to watch with the other races, and certainly is a fun one for these cars, even if it feels a little longer than it does in F1. Is there anybody you want to thank for today's podium regardless?
Just everyone that's joined the league over the last week, and the new guys, they're incredibly fast, and it's nice to have you around, and you obviously for putting on the lovely broadcast.
Well, thank you very much. And that was David Burns, who took the win, or the second place today. He wishes he took the win as we close out. And we want to give a big thank you to the Absolute Beginners League for bringing us back for another season of coverage. But we also want to thank the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Ryan, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media listed here. Also, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. We keep a link down in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, because as we said, next time out, we are going to Brands Hatch, and that'll be Sunday, December 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out. Mark them down on your calendar, including in a few moments, we're going off to Sebring for Big C's MX5 Challenge. That'll be at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.